All right, man. Drew Petzing. Um, let's get into it. Drew Petzing reveals what he wants Detroit Lions offense to be. So, got Detroit Lions top playlist. Hit the link tree, first link in the description. It says find me everywhere. You can find me everywhere there from X, Facebook, Instagram, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, wherever. He said, if there any doubt, and shout out to DetroitSportsNation.com, if there's any doubt about whether Drew Petzing would fit in Detroit, his own words erased it quickly. An exclusive interview with the Pride of Detroit, the Lions' new offensive coordinator described the philosophy that aligns seamlessly with Dan Campbell's vision, an offense built on physicality, adaptability, and putting a constant stress on opposing defenses. This won't be a system first operation. It will be a player-driven, punishment-based approach that evolves weekly. And yes, Petzing was very clear about what that means. He says, violence isn't a buzzword, it's a standard. What drew Petzing to the Detroit Lions wasn't just a roster or recent success, it was the way the Lions played the game. He said, one thing that I firmly believe in football is that win or lose, it's a violent game, and people on the other side of the ball need to feel it every time you step on the field. I think that identity is in this building has been so prevalent throughout everything they've done. As an outsider looking in, you've had a ton of respect for that because that's not an easy, not always easy to do. The belief is foundational for Petzing. Physicality isn't situational. It's constant. It's the baseline expectation that informs how the offense is built from the ground up. An offense built around players, not a playbook. Rather than enforcing a rigid system, Petzing is emphasizing that the offense will always reflect the personnel available, and that philosophy must remain fluid throughout the season. Quote, I think the key to any offense is it got to be built around the players you have, and you have got to highlight their abilities and what they do best. Every roster I've been on, it's going to be a little different. I wouldn't say it's going to be this, it's going to be that. It's going to be what we feel like we're best at and what makes us harder to defend. And I think that has to evolve each and every week you're in this league. So the adaptability is a direct reflection of the lessons Petzing learned in Arizona. With injuries, forced weekly adjustments, and also a mindset that fits perfectly in Detroit, with versatility and toughness define the roster and injuries. Running the ball is an attitude. When Preston talked about the run game, it's impossible not to hear echoes of Dan Campbell's voice. He said, quote, at the end of the day, the game comes down to fundamentals, right? You've got to be able to block, catch, throw, tackle, run. Running the ball is an attitude thing, and it's about moving people off the line of scrimmage. It's about putting the ball in the hands of your best players as often as possible to affect the game. So he said that approach doesn't require reinvention. Petzing made it clear he isn't interested in scrapping what's already works. Quote, we're not going to completely depart from anything they've done really well. I'm hoping I could bring some wrinkles that make even more effective and maybe unlock a couple things. Two backs, one problem for defense. Detroit's backfield is one of the greatest strengths, and Preston sees Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery as stress multipliers when used together. Quote, you're always going to try to find ways to get your best players on the field, whether that's 25 times a game or 5 times a game. That has to be something you're considering. When you have two players of the dynamic ability, you want to find things they can do together because it puts stress on the defense. At the same time, Preston understands durability matters. Quote, I also know one thing to play 100% of the snaps is they're not going to make it through 17 games. It's a balance. Week 13 personnel fits Detroit identity. Why 13 personnel fits Detroit identity? Heavy personnel packages aren't old school football. They're about leverage and matchup control. Quote, that's the final piece is the key to it. The matchups, when you have the guys that can do a lot of different things, you can start to dictate things based on what the defense wants to do. It allows you to dictate the defense a little bit more, and it gives you the freedom to jump back and forth without being predictable. In other words, Detroit Lions can force defenses in uncomfortable situations and punish them regardless how they respond. Exactly what the Lions were looking for. Petzing's comments reinforce why the Lions target him in the first place. He isn't chasing trends. He isn't attached to labels. He believes in fundamentals, accountability, and the physical dominance. Quote, one of the key points of being an offensive coordinator is you got to be in charge of everything, and you have to hold people accountable. Detroit didn't hire Drew Petzing, who they didn't hire Drew Petzing to change who they are. They hired him to sharpen it, to make the offense more adaptable, more punishing, and hard to defend week after week. His words are any indication, opposing defenses already know what's coming and they're going to feel it. So, yeah, I mean, everything I pretty much said they were looking for in the offensive coordinator. This is pretty much what I meant. This is what I meant. Everything he talked about, just the physics. And I think that's one thing, John Morton was more kind of getting away from was the physicality, more explode. His thing was explosion, explosive plays, and that's kind of more of a finesse word. And that's what they were missing last year. And I feel like he possibly could have developed that. Maybe they felt like he couldn't develop that, but explosion, that was his word. You hear him talking about violence and versatility and using the two-back system. And that's everything I said they was looking for an offensive coordinator. This is why I said it was a good fit. When I talked about they need to get back to being a physical football team, running, using the two backs, being violent, getting downhill, getting back to really running the ball and opposing their physicality on players on the other defenses. That's what was missing last year. They were missing the physicality, the violence of it. That's what they were missing. That was why they were so pathetic in the red zone this year. This is why, they struggled in short yardage. And some of that can be also in the favor of John Morton due to, some of the personnel changes, with Glasgow playing center and Decker being injured. Yeah. So, hopefully Drew Petzing gets the benefit of having a better, a better center, having a better, healthier left tackle, and having more reinforcements at guards. And, I think that's possibly will happen. But he's just a great fit to what they need. Offense built on players and not playbooks. That's one thing Ben Johnson did a great job at. He built the offense around their strengths. Now, a question will be, can he get something out of J-Mo? Dan Campbell was able to get a lot out of J-Mo. Ben Johnson wasn't able to really get a lot out of J-Mo. If you really pay attention, Ben Johnson wasn't able to get a lot out of J-Mo. He didn't really care for J-Mo. He didn't trust him. But also he understood how important he was. He went to go draft his high school teammate and another burner in Luther Burden. But he's going to build the offense around personnel. And they're going to do different things week to week. That's what Ben Johnson brought. It wasn't just we're going to do this and we're going to force the offense. We're going to force the defense just to conform to us. No, we're going to see where we have strengths at versus that defense, and we're going to attack it. Running the ball with an attitude. Last year, they didn't run the ball with an attitude. That had a lot to do with John Morton, a lot to do with the personnel issues. Two backs, I just talked about that. I told y'all can't expect to lean on Jahmyr Gibbs and him take every snap early in the season. Yeah, you lean on David Montgomery earlier. You sprinkle in Gibbs, and then when you make your playoff run, you flood them with Gibbs. That's just how it got to be. That's how DeAndre Swift and that rookie they kept each other balanced in Chicago. Ben Johnson was the only offensive play caller last year, and Chicago was the only team, what they said, with two backs was 750 plus rushing yards. He understands how to make them work and feed off each other. And I think if Drew Petzing can do that, they're going to be hard. And, the whole thing about 12 personnel, 13 personnel, the Lions don't have the person. Yes, the fuck they do. They always throw an extra offensive lineman in there. They got Brock Wright. So when we start kind of talking about them not having a personnel, what games are we watching? They have they got too many receivers. Nobody worry about that. Receivers will find a way to get on the field, bro. This is going to be forcing, if teams want to stay in nickel to defend the Lions, it's going to force them to get ran over. Once they want to start throwing, base defenses, 3-4, 4-3s, then we can flood them with passes. So it's smart. It's smart, man. So a lot of things I liked about this hire when I really was digging into the research, and it's just his versatility and him being violent and physical, and that's what kind of was missing with John Morton. He wasn't as violent. He wasn't as physical. He wasn't as physical. He was more explosive, flamboyant plays, and and whether that still led to a lot of points for the Lions, it didn't lead to sustained success. It didn't lead to sustained success. So yeah, but hey man, let's talk about we're gonna talk about that all off season. So I'm a Drew Petzing fan, and if it don't go right, I'll be the first one to admit that I was wrong. But hey, hit the link in the description. I say find me everywhere. You can find me everywhere: Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, wherever I'm producing content at. I'm on there. So let me know what you girls and guys think. Peace.